Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hine, taking a look at tonight's 11-game slate. I know you're excited. It's always exciting with Sonny Gray's on the slate because this is where you get to lash out and let out all the anger from the week.
I don't really have any anger. I just like talking about Sonny Gray and how much of a fraud he is and stacking against him every single time I get a chance to. So it is that day. It is a sunny day outside because Gray is on the mound.
And we look at this Baltimore Yankees game first here. It is Sonny Gray, Dylan Bundy. Um, Definitely a game I don't mind getting some exposure to, and on both sides. I don't like a lot of the value that's on the slate outside of maybe a couple back halves of some of the lineups because we do have like Boston against Bartolo, Coors, and all this. So I like some of the back halves of lineups, and I do like Baltimore and taking some shots just because some of these guys have been heating up a little bit, and then they're still at reasonable prices.
Yeah, they really are. And Gray is a guy, even dating back to last season, struggled against righties, and we know this is going to be a right-handed heavy lineup. But specifically this season, I mean, he's giving up like a 359 WOBA and a 191 ISO to right-handed hitters, and he's given up a decent amount of hard contact and fly balls. And you have guys like Jonathan Scope, who's been heating up recently and is in a really good spot here. And you have a few other bats like Trumbo, Adam Jones, and Machado that I think are really, really interesting, and they profile extremely well against Sonny Gray's mess of pitches that he throws that all look the same.
Yeah, like he's a guy who relies a lot on kind of just some off-speed stuff. And you mentioned Scope. He's always a guy who stands out against guys who throw some junk, especially curveballs. I mean, 408 WOBA, 288 ISO, 51% hard contact against that curveball. He's only 3,700 on FanDuel or on DraftKings. FanDuel is 3,400. And like you said, he's been heating up. And all these guys, I think they're going to get overlooked. I think they're going to look at Gray's last start and go, oh, Gray pitched relatively well. Baltimore still sucks. But I do like them. I think they're actually going to be really good low-owned plays.
Yeah, and like I think Gray is going to be is going to be someone that people might use on tonight's slate, especially given you're probably wanting to pay up for Coors with Shelby Miller on the mound and whatnot. But like, I can't do it. I can't rightfully recommend him either with as much bashing as I do against Sonny Gray. So I will not be in the camp of you can play him in GPPs if you want to, but like this dude's given up 15 earned runs over his last 3 games. He's given up 4 earned in 2 games against the Orioles this season. So I really do like the Orioles as a contrarian stack, and hopefully they don't let me down.
When did they ever?
Pretty much every day.
Yankee side of things here. Bundy 6,100, a guy who relies on a pretty good slider. Did not pitch well his last time out. A lot of 5 earned runs. I feel like he has some strikeout upside, but the recent form, the trip to the DL, kind of concerns me.
Yeah, I don't know that I could really consider him in the spot. Like, I would love to be able to get some exposure against a Yankees offense that could end up being somewhat chalky. Um, he came off the DL. What he was on there for like a ankle injury or something like that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, ankle injury. That's always concerning because like when you're dealing with some of those lower body injuries that you could mess up like the velocity. And he's a guy, if his velocity isn't over like 92 miles per hour, he really struggles. And I'm pulling up his game log for his last game to see what his pitch velocity was. Yeah, he was under 92 on his 4 seam in that last game, but I would take some shots against him, maybe against some of the back half guys. Andujar, Higashioka. I think I said that right. There's too many letters in that name. As guys that I would have a little bit interest in, just because Bundy 279, only 279 WOBA allowed to righties this season, but 215 ISO.
Yeah, like I like those guys. It's like he says, the back half guys. I don't hate like a Gregorius or Hicks either from the left side or a Bird. The power's been a little bit higher, but I mean, still against lefties is your 374, 187 ISO. Always a big fly ball guy to both sides of the plate. The strikeouts do drop about 10% to lefties, but I do like the Andujar call, especially. I feel like we're going to have to kind of highlight some of the value just because there's not. I know Andujar is not cheap, but in consideration to some of the other options on this slate, he is.
Yeah, and I don't even hate Neil Walker down at like 3,300 on DraftKings. I'm sure he's super cheap on FanDuel too. He's 2,300 on FanDuel. So as like a second base option, if you're not fading lock of the night Jed Jerko, Neil Walker's interesting.
Yeah. Cincinnati and Cleveland next year. We got Tyler Miley taking on Carlos Carrasco. Reds with a wild comeback last night, but this series has been some strikeout happy offenses so far.
Yeah, Reds came into this like series as like really really hot, and that concerned me yesterday. How many strikeouts did Bauer end up having?
I think 11 or 12.
12. Yeah, that concerned me. I don't know that I'm necessarily as concerned about that tonight. I don't know if I have Carrasco on my radar though, if I'm being completely honest.
I don't think so. I just don't know if he gives you enough of a bump down to get like that extra hitter. Like if you're dying to maybe play like I don't even know if you're dying to play like a Mookie Betts or JD Martinez or something or someone in cores. Like I don't know if it's enough of a pivot down from like a DeGrom or Sale for me tonight.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a chalk mid-range option, and that's completely fine. Like he is a guy that generally does have some strikeout upside, but he's also very risky. Just given, I mean, it is Carlos Carrasco. That's just the nature of who he is. Like he's going to have these games like he did against the White Sox and the Brewers, where he puts up like freaking 30-something fantasy points, and then he's going to have games against like the Twins and some of these other offenses that he should be able to put down pretty easily, and he struggles. So I don't know if he's not on my radar tonight. I think I'm leaning some other places, but in tournaments, he's a guy that does have some strikeout upside, I think.
Yeah, like I won't say no in tournaments. I think I'm going to go look at a couple of cheaper options, maybe like a Luke Weaver at 7,700, who gives me a noticeable difference in pricing, especially at an SP2, just because it really is still hard to fade like Sale and DeGrom here tonight.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't really look to target Carrasco. I know he gives up a decent amount of hard contact, and he has struggled a little bit with homers. I guess if you want to take a shot on maybe like a Schebler, Votto, or Jeanette, they're viable GPP options.
Yeah, I would probably lean Schebler. Just against Carrasco's fastball, 372 ISO, pretty solid numbers there. Not great contact, just 72%. But I would lean maybe him, maybe a Votto, Duvall, or a Winker. Winker's a guy that I always have interest in, just because he's usually pretty cheap, and doesn't generally have a ton of power, but is a good on base threat.
Yeah, for sure. Cleveland. We saw Lindor, Ramirez, homer, but overall it was kind of a meh stack on that slate. They get another guy. I feel like all these guys have been relatively similar, where they're not bad against righties and they just suck against lefties, and that's the case here with Malu, who's allowing a 46% hour contact lefties, 278 ISO, 396 WOBA, and a guy who just throws that fastball basically the entire time.
I feel like everything I said last night about the Indians, just copy and paste it into today, because it's pretty much the same thing. You're looking at the Lindors, the Brantleys, the Ramirez, the lefties that hit that four seam, 92 mile an hour four seam really, really well. And it's literally everyone that I wrote up yesterday. Kipnis, Yonder, those guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you need the punt, like I feel like if you're looking for some punts, the Tyler Naquins, the Greg Allens, if you want an outfield spot, if you're going with, the Arenados or Goldschmidts or whoever you want to play tonight up top, like I don't mind some of those options.
Yeah, they're good value options. Greg Allen's a guy, not great numbers against right-handed pitching this season, just a 108 ISO and 249 WOBA, but against Molly's four seam, small sample, but 350 ISO, 484 WOBA, 91% contact rate.
Yeah. Moving on here, Texas and Boston. Bartolo Colon taking on Chris Sale. This game should be extremely straightforward for everyone here. Chris Sale, 13K. I don't even feel like that's bad of a price tag.
It's really not for a guy that's been pitching as well as he has. I mean, the strikeout numbers are just ridiculous. I mean, 37% strikeout rate this season. That's just insane. And I don't think anyone's tuning in to hear us talk about Chris Sale and how he's, a good option here. The dude has double-digit strikeouts in four straight outings. Texas, I mean, they're actually, if you look there, I think they're ranked 11th in the majors dating back to last season against left-handed pitching, but there's still some strikeouts in that lineup, and it's still Chris Sale. So if you can get up to that 13K mark and you want to, lock in the safety, feel free.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think it's too good of a matchup here to pass up. Like we saw Sale 12 strikeouts in his last start against Texas. Um, yeah, like you said, we just don't need to talk about this game much because even on the other side here, you want to pick on Bartolo Colon, feel free to do so. I think we joked around last time, and Bartolo Colon actually had like a reasonable outing. I don't recall right. Oh, yeah, he won 7 innings, allowed 4 runs, which is actually pretty good against his Boston team.
Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, I think the interesting guys here are the back half again. The Brock Holtz, Devers, Sandy Leone projected in lineup actually hits sinkers pretty well. 400 WOBA, 163 ISO, 89% contact rate. That's like Babe Ruth numbers for Sandy Leone. And then JBJ, a guy continues to hit really well of late and is still pretty darn cheap across the industry.
Yeah, 2 doubles last night. All those guys are cheap. I really like Leon. I like that call behind the dish to just get some good lift against that sinker as well.
Yeah.
So,
Jackie Bradley, 2,600 on FanDuel.
yeah, he's a guy that I'm going to be looking at a ton just to kind of fill one of those third outfield spots.
Yeah, for sure.
And then obviously, like Mitch Moreland's a good play. His price dropped a little bit. He's only 4,100.
Yeah, I do dig him as well.
So, and those other guys are all good.
Yeah.
Milwaukee, Miami, Freddie Peralta taking on Dan Straley. Peralta's just been a beast this year. I like him here tonight. I think he's a reasonable pivot off of some of the bigger names. I don't think he's going to garnish like a huge amount of ownership, although I don't think he's going to be completely overlooked.
He's been a beast this year, except for the spots where like you had him at, like against the Twins and the Reds, and you're like, damn it. But he is in a really good spot against the Marlins. We love attacking the Marlins here. He's a guy at 36% strikeout rate this season. We've talked about it before. A lot of it just comes from his length and his delivery. It's very, very deceptive, even though he doesn't throw pretty much anything other than a fastball. This Miami offense against right-handed pitching this season, this projected lineup, only 19.5% strikeout rates. So I don't know that I would expect, 8, 9, 10 strikeouts from Peralta, but if he comes out and gives you 6 innings pitched, gets a win, and 6 strikeouts with maybe only 1 earned run, that's pretty good numbers at his price tag. So if you're going to pivot down from the DeGroms, the McCullers, and the Sales, Peralta's there for a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the only real knock against him is just that walk rate, right about 12% this year. Can run into him a little bit in trouble every now and then, and because he does work deep into counts at times, he doesn't go completely deep into games. I think he's only pitched into the 7th once this year. But I do like him here. I think he's a reasonable option, and it's a relatively top-heavy slate anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I think the only guy that I would even have any interest in continues to be like Justin Bourne and JT Riddle.
Yeah.
If I was looking to get exposure against Peralta for whatever reason, if I was a glutton for punishment or whatnot, or decided to throw Sonny Gray and just have like a screw it all lineup.
Milwaukee side of things here took a real dark turn there for you. Looking at the Milwaukee side, Dan Straley is one of the poorer pitchers on the slate, to say it nicely. Guy was walking a lot of guys, just allowing a ton of hard contact, a lot of fly balls. Only downgrade here is the ballpark, but I do like some of these Brewers bats who are actually coming down in price.
Yeah, they are. Probably for a reason, because most of them have not been that good recently. But you have guys like Shaw, who's pretty fairly priced across the industry. I think has been a little bit unlucky, coming off a home run last night. in a good spot against Straley. I like Eric Thames in the spot too. Straley's a guy, as you mentioned, a lot of fly balls, a lot of hard contact to the left side of the plate. So I would be focusing on the lefties. As I mentioned, Thames 370 ISO against Straley's four seam fastball. You have Yelich 295 ISO against that four seam fastball. Shaw 386 ISO against it. Brad Miller 242 ISO against it. There's an interesting cheap name to look at here, and I guess even like Tyler Saladino.
Yeah, this is a back half of the line that I'm looking at. Like you mentioned, the Millers, Saladino, Eric Kratz, like all these guys are cheap options. Kratz has been a guy who's been filling in for some of the injured Milwaukee catchers' options, but against righties, 54% our contact rate this year.
Yeah, and you have the Yelich revenge narrative too.
You do, yeah.
Although he should be like praising Miami for getting him the hell out of there into a team that's marginally better.
Yes. Yeah, I like the Brewers here tonight. Vegas isn't completely in love, and I think that just has a lot to do with playing in Miami, and the Brewers have been kind of slumping a little bit outside of like Aguilar. But I like him. I like him as a contrarian stack as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on here, we got Philly and New York. Jacob deGrom taking on Vince Velasquez. DeGrom, 1,000 cheaper than Sale. And I don't mind him here. He's got some strikeout upside in this spot. I do prefer Sale just in terms of a matchup, but I do like DeGrom here as well.
Yeah, another guy made it in the pitching article. I think it'd be stupid to not put him in the pitching article. And another guy where most of this goes without saying. I mean, you mentioned the strikeout upside. The dude has like a 31% strikeout rate this season. He's been absolutely outstanding. Leads the majors with a 1.79 ERA, second in the National League in strikeouts, 15 straight starts with 3 or fewer earned runs, go on and on and on. It's a good spot for DeGrom. The biggest downside, and if you're hunting, if you're paying up, it does kind of hurt if you're going to not get the win. The Mets are freaking terrible, and they can't hit, and they can't score runs, and so Jacob DeGrom never gets run support. So that's a little concerning, but he still has the ability to go deep, rack up strikeouts. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of 1A, 1B here. I don't have any interest in Philly's bets against him. Do you?
No, I'm not. No.
Philly or Mets side things here. Velasquez. Velasquez took a liner off his forearm in the last start, but expected to be fine here. Gets a lefty heavy lineup, which is always kind of a concern for me, but I don't mind. I don't mind Velasquez still in GPPs.
No, he's the guy who made it in my article. You mentioned he took that liner off the arm. He went to the DL, missed one start, so he should be fine as far as innings and all that stuff goes. It's just this offense is so bad. They're one of the worst offenses in baseball, dating back to last season against right-handed pitching. I mean, you obviously have Nimmo and Cabrera from the left side of the plate. I guess you can lump Conforto in there, even though he's not hitting very well this season. Those are the only guys you're really worried about. And I mean, Velasquez, 28% strikeout rate this season. This Mets offense striking out 25% of the time against right-handed pitching. It's a fine spot for him. Obviously, again, you are a little concerned. He's giving up that 250 ISO and 353 WOBA to lefties, but it's a spot where I'm very, very comfortable coming off of the Luke Weaver chalk and moving up to Velasquez in tournaments.
Yeah, I'm with you. And you look at Velasquez too. He's been much better on the road, especially in the home run department. He's allowed 11 at home, 2 on the road. And it's shown in that ERA. I mean, under 3, it's over 6 at home. Like you said, I mean, it's Nimmo, Cabrera. You kind of get around those guys, the Confortos and Smiths. They just haven't shown any power or willingness to kind of get at people this year.
Yeah, and I mean, he's made his way through some lefty pretty powerful left-handed heavy offenses already this season. He only two innings pitched against Washington, but 3 strikeouts in 2 innings, only gave up that one earned run. But against the Braves, who is offense with a ton of lefties, was able to make it through that outing relatively unscathed. So like I'm just not worried about the Mets in the spot.
Oh, I'm with you. Moving on here, we got Toronto and Atlanta. Mike Foltynewicz taking on Sam Gaviglio. Uh, this is kind of a wash game for me, I feel here. I don't have a ton of interest in really either offense and kind of really either pitcher either.
I like Fulte just as a tournament pivot again off of the Peraltas and the McCullers and some of these more expensive options. A little bit worrisome that last game against Milwaukee. Did struggle, gave up 5 earned runs, but still struck out 7. There is a decent amount of strikeout potential for Foltynewicz in the spot. I'd be interested to go back and look and see if he was back to tipping his pitches in that Milwaukee start. That maybe could be what happened. But he's a guy he has that slider that he throws almost 30% of the time. He's generating like a 38% whiff rate on it. If that's working for him against this offense that really sucks against sliders, he's in a good spot. And then if you look, like a couple of these bats are good against those really high velocity 4-seam fastballs. But not really anyone that I'm overly concerned about. So I really like him in tournaments.
I think he's a great pivot. If Peralta or Carrasco gain a little bit of ownership, I kind of hope that Fulte is the guy who drops in ownership. I don't know if I'll have him in my lineup, just being a little bit thin at pitching tonight. I'm going to be trying to narrow it down, but I definitely won't say no.
Yeah, it's a tournament. I think it's a tournament play only.
I don't really have any interest in picking on him here. I know what Smoke Homer last night was pretty down game from Toronto, so maybe it was a good thing that you didn't end up stacking them in the article.
Yeah, probably.
Other side here, Caviglio's a guy who rolls a lot of ground balls to right-handers. He's not awful against lefties. Braves offense just kind of once again a little too priced up for me to consider here.
Yeah, it's one of those offenses that I'm just, even though like Viglio is a guy that like should be much worse than he has been. I just don't have any interest in them tonight. It's just not a spot that I'm willing to look at.
Oh, let's move on. Oakland and Houston. Lance McCullers take on Chris Bassett. Wild game last night. If you didn't see Lucroy, in it's his walk off. I wouldn't call it Bregman's.
Yeah, Lucroy walked off a walk off win for the Houston Astros.
Oh, so bad. Chris Bassett, a guy who's overall not that great of stuff. Houston, I think, is kind of interesting here, especially some of the back half cheaper guys. I like some of the Marwin Gonzalez, Tucker, Reddick. These guys, I kind of like their price tags here.
Yeah, they do have some interesting price tags. We'll have to keep an eye on the lineup. Marwin, I think, is questionable.
That's right.
Yeah, he's listed as day-to-day left wrist and elbow bruises. I would not expect him to be in the lineup. So we'll see who gets in the lineup in place of him. But it is an interesting spot, I think, for the back half guys. Kyle Tucker, a name to keep an eye on. I definitely think if he's still super cheap on FanDuel. I know DraftKings priced him up already, but he's $2,400 on FanDuel. But like on DraftKings, he's up to $4K. He's more expensive than Josh Reddick on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Like I'm not paying $4K for Kyle Tucker in the spot, but some of the other guys like the Reddicks, Gaddis continues to hit really well. Max Stassi, those guys, I'm fine taking shots on.
Yeah, Springer's price went down a little bit. He's $4,400 on DraftKings. Coming off a decent night. I know we usually like to target more him against lefties, but against cutters, 403 WOBA, 286 ISO. Against sinkers, it's not as good, but 336 WOBA, 169. I don't mind him at that price tag for the upside he brings.
No, I don't either. And again, I think Josh Reddick's very, very interesting in here. He's generally a guy that over the past 3 seasons we've loved to target against ground ball pitchers, and Bassett, a guy, does throw that sinker a lot. It's not generating very many ground balls with it, only 40% overall or 38.5% overall this season, but throws that sinker 36% of the time. So should be a good spot for Reddick in a revenge game.
That's very true. McCullers on the other side. This one, he's been pitching really well of late. He's faced his Oakland team, 3 times this year, 22 DK points on average. I don't mind him here at 11K with the way he's pitching. Oakland just, God, they're so pesky of late. They've been playing really well.
Yeah, they really have. McCullers, I think, is just a tournament pivot here. Obviously, the strikeouts have been up recently. I mean, he's got at least 9 in 3 of his last 4 outings. 27% strikeout rate overall this season. The biggest issue is just the A's, a lot of hard contact to right-handed pitching. I mean, this projected lineup, 42% hard contact rates, 21% strikeout rates. So that's a little concerning. He's, again, a fine tournament option, I think, if you're wanting to pivot. But, like, cash games, you're just rolling Sale and DeGrom.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think McCullers is one of those guys who's kind of in no man's land for me. He's just in the middle where I'll probably find the extra 1K or 2K to get to DeGrom or Sale or kind of pay down.
Yeah, for sure.
So don't really love picking on him here. Guy who throws that curveball quite a bit. Yes, you have some guys with some good ISO numbers, but the contact rates are still rather poor.
Yeah, I saw their contact rates, and they're all like in the 50s and 60s for the most part. So, yeah. Not worried about that too much.
No. Next game here, we got the Cardinals and White Sox. Carlos Rodon taking on Luke Weaver. Weaver found himself in that last start against the Giants, which I was kind of surprised with because they actually loaded up, I think, about 4 or 5 lefties in that one, and that's kind of where Weaver has struggled with. I'm never comfortable with Weaver. I'm going to probably actually try my best to not use him tonight, but if he fits, I might have to.
Weaver has found himself like 14 different times already this season.
I just don't know what to make of this kid. One start he's on, one start he's off, maybe 4 starts he's off, 2 starts he's on. Like you said, he's all over the place.
Yeah, he really is. And like the biggest concern that I have with Weaver, and we've talked about it before, is the strikeouts. Like, and he has a 21% strikeout rate overall this season. Those numbers are down. Like his strikeouts have just been down overall this season. And I think everyone still looks at him as that guy that's just mowing down lineups, and he's not doing that as much this season. Like this White Sox offense, 23 projected lineup, 23.3% strikeout rates. So that is a little bit interesting. If you want to roll Weaver in cash, I think you can, just because he's going to be chalky. But I think in tournaments, it's a good idea to pivot off of him to like someone like Velasquez.
Yeah, I'm with you. There is one bat on the White Sox side that really stood out. He's been god awful late. I will say that his price has dropped. He's 3,500. It's Jose Abreu. But he matches up really, really well with Weaver against changeups. Abreu, 448 well, but 316 ISO. Against that 93, 94 mile per hour fastball, 421 well, with 287 ISO. I know we usually like to target the lefties, but those are just good numbers for Abreu here.
Yeah, they really are. And I don't even mind taking a shot on someone like Daniel Palka in this spot. I mean, good numbers against that 4-seam fastball. And even Yohan Moncada, a lot of hard contact against that 4-seam fastball and decent contact rates. So, I mean, you're taking a risk with Moncada because he's striking out like 35% of the time this season against righties. But I still think you can take some shots on them in tournaments, just because I think Weaver is going to be popular in tournaments.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a chance here. I mean, we got 5 projected lefties in this lineup.
Yeah, and a good park. So,
yeah, it's not the safest option here for Weaver. Cardinal side things, we got Rodon pitching over a 5.5 xFIP since returning this season. A lot of fly balls as usual. Not a ton of strikeouts, especially to right-handers. I definitely like some bats here.
I love the Cardinals offense again tonight, in a good spot against Rodon. We love targeting the Cardinals against lefties when they're not at home. Because for some reason, when they get a lefty at home, they're just like the worst offense in baseball. And then whenever they're on the road, they feel like hitting. I guess they hate their fans or something. But like against Rodon, I love this spot for Jose Martinez. 322 WOBA against lefties this season, only in 103 ISO. So I guess that regression has finally hit. But I really like him. I love Paul DeYoung, Harrison Bader, Yairo Munoz. Jed Jerko, I'm calling his home run right now.
You son of a bitch. You summed it up here. It's Cardinals bats. I like the righties. All really nice price tags. I know, like Ozuna, a lot of the hard contact has been on the ground this year against lefties, but big fly ball guy like Rodon, I don't mind that 3-3 price tag.
No, perfectly fine spot for him. And even someone like Tommy Pham, still listed as day to day, but we'll see if he makes the lineup. He was scratched last night, so he was almost good enough to play because they put him in the lineup and then they scratched him. So maybe he'll make the lineup tonight.
Yeah, hopefully.
Although Coors, Mike Matheny, so who the hell knows?
That's true. Coors on the slate. German Marquez here to take on Shelby Miller. Don't mind Coors here tonight. With both these arms, I know you and I were kind of looking off of it yesterday, and that was pretty much the case outside of maybe a couple solo shots. What signed me up here, especially for some of these Colorado guys.
Yeah, Shelby Miller. Yeah.
You just sound like the Office Space boss. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to stack against Shelby Miller tonight. Yeah.
There's not much to say here. Miller pitched somewhat okay against the Padres at home, but overall has just been getting blasted. Hard contact is through the roof. Miller just hasn't been good over like the last 3 years, or basically since coming over to Arizona.
Yeah, that's got to be like Arizona just had they just have to be hating themselves for that trade.
There's 3 or 4 trades they've made where they've just been god awful.
Yeah, it has not been good for Shelby Miller. He's either been getting blown up or hurt pretty much the entire time since coming over.
Yeah, so here it's, if you want to pay up for the big names, but there's actually a lot of other options that are below 4,500 on DraftKings in this lineup.
Yeah, I think obviously Charlie Blackmon, good spot here. If you want to roll Charlie Blackmon out, don't need me to tell you that he's a good play, but I really like Carlos Gonzalez down at 4,300. It is a good spot for him. But even someone like Tony Wolters, if he makes the lineup, an interesting option behind the dish. He's pretty cheap. Everyone from the Colorado side of this game in play here.
Yep, I'm with you. They offer up some cheap guys in that back half. You mentioned Cargo, Pars 3.9, Wolters 3.2. LeMahieu is only 4.3. That's a cheap second base exposure as well.
Yep, for sure.
Arizona side of things here, Marquez has been a guy who will roll some ground balls against righties, decent hard contact. I like the lefties here. I don't find the Jake Lambs, the John Jays, the Daniel Descalsos, the price tags to be all that out of control.
No, they're really not. And I mean, obviously John Jay leading off in a pretty good spot. Not a guy you're generally looking at for power, but I do really like him here. You mentioned Jake Lamb, David Peralta. Oh God, Alex Avila projected in the lineup.
What did I tell you about Mathis getting?
Yeah, I almost tweeted you whenever that happened, but David Peralta definitely interesting. I know he's up to 5,200, but coming off a solid outing has been pretty good over his last 10 games. So I kind of like him as a one-off in this spot.
Yeah, I do too. Some of these guys, I mean, some good numbers. We look at Marquez, obviously a guy who kind of throws that 95-mile-per-hour fastball about 48, 49% of the time, and then drops that curve in. His fastball just getting hit extremely hard this year.
Yeah, and Rake Lamb, an excellent third base option.
Yeah, for sure. So you don't need to tell us what to do here. It's Colorado. Let's move on. Seattle and LA. Jamie Barria taking on Marco Gonzalez. Marco Gonzalez continues to pitch well. He's 7K, which I think is even like a $700 drop from where he was the last time he faced the Angels. If I can, just a $300 drop. But he's pitched well against them. Despite this team being pretty heavy right-handed, they haven't been that great against lefties this year.
Yeah, they really haven't. It's kind of weird. I mean, against lefties this season, I got the wrong team highlighted here. just has not really been that great. And Marco Gonzalez, a guy I joked about him turning into Masahiro Tanaka because he's just throwing a bunch of off speed stuff. And it's really worked out for him this year. If you're reaching for someone really, really cheap, I don't hate taking a shot on him in this spot.
No, I don't either. Like he's a cheap SP2. I probably won't go there on, single sites, but like I do like the upside that he brings, for that price tag. I think he's a relatively safe start. I don't think he'll kill you if he gives up a few earned runs. Not the worst ballpark on the road. I know he's been a little bit off on the road, but I think that just kind of stems from that Yankees and Red Sox start where like he allowed like 12 earned runs.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So that's about it. I don't have a ton of interest in picking on him here. Like a lot of these bats have just been awful against lefties.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, they're dating back to last season, 25th against lefties, 19.9% strikeout rate, 295 WOBA. Decent hard contact numbers, about 35%, but just have not really been doing it. Obviously Trout if you want to go there, but there's better ways to spend your money tonight. Jeffrey Marte is a little bit interesting. I mean, he's one of the only guys outside of Trout. He actually is the only guy outside of Trout in that projected lineup with an ISO over 200 against lefties. So, and he has good numbers against sinkers, 348 WOBA, 264 ISO. So I might be interested in a Jeffrey Marte like one off.
Yeah, I like that call. Seattle side of things here, Berea. A guy who relies on that slider quite a bit. It's a good slider. 39% whiff rate, 194 WOBA allowed this year. Sometimes it doesn't work, which is why we've seen the right-handers, give him some power numbers against it. 243 ISO at times. Go back here. We talked about last night. Mitch Haniger against slider happy pitchers. If he gets one, it's going over the fence.
Yeah, if the thing is he has to get one because he still only has like a 66% contact rate against it. But whenever he makes contact, 375 WOBA, 248 ISO, pretty good numbers. He'd be a one-off that I would have a little bit of interest in, and that's pretty much it from the Seattle side for me.
Yeah, it's the same case as last night. It's Haniger here, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
San Diego, LA, Kenta Maeda took on Joey Lucchesi. We saw the Dodgers offense, come back down to earth a little bit after a real hot stretch. Lauer pitched really well. They get another lefty here who's allowed a lot of hard contact, a lot of power to righties. I kind of don't mind going back to the Dodgers here.
I don't mind going back to the well on them. I will not be like going all out. Like Lucchesi's been solid since coming back from the DL. Hasn't pitched deep into the games, but over his last 4 starts, it's only been 6 earned runs. So it's not terrible. A guy you did have good strikeout stuff to start the season, but I think people caught on to him pretty quickly. I don't hate going with like the Kike Hernandez. Obviously, you're a platoon guy. Max Muncy, screw you, regression crowd. It's still happening. Max Muncy going ham. I don't hate going with Max Muncy or Matt Kemp here, but I'm not going all in on the Dodgers again tonight.
No, I'm with you. I think the one guy that I have the most, it's Turner and Kemp just because they're price tags. The Kemp dropped in price and his power against lefties this year has been insane. Turner, we know, does damage, and they offer up some value here. Other side of things here, any interest in Maeda?
Yes, he's a guy made it in my pitching article. Obviously, we have to be worried about Will Myers because he's just been going bonkers recently. But it's Padres' offense. We've talked about it before. We don't like taking left-handed pitchers against him. We do like taking right-handed pitchers against him because this offense does strike out a lot against righties. I mean, this projected lineup. Where is it? 24% strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. Maeda, guys, strikeouts have been good for him this year. I mean, 30% strikeout rate so far this season. He's coming off 3 straight 9 strikeout games. Yeah, 3 straight 9 strikeout games. Obligatory Dave Roberts pitcher comments, but I think this is a fine spot for Maeda, especially at that price tag.
Yeah, I like him a lot here. I like him over Carrasco. He's my favorite in kind of this 9 to 10-3 range. good ballpark there. It's a team that strikes out a ton. I do feel like he's a little bit safer than like a Carrasco.
Yeah, for sure.
So I do like him a lot. Home run calls. I know Jerko was your one. Who else?
Man, that's kind of tough. I keep on gravitating towards Coors, but I don't want to cheat. Let's go with Jonathan Scope.
Come on. All right, give me a minute here. I gotta regroup.
Did I steal both of yours?
Yes, you did. You did.
Yes.
Friday, I'm going first. I need to go first here. Man, this is tough. I'm gonna go Matt Kemp though, and then God, I'm gonna go JBJ.
I dig it.
So that's it for us. Big slate. Be sure to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for our tools and content, articles, cheat sheets, all that good stuff. And us too, we'll be back on Friday.
Good luck tonight.